What's up, Taiwan? I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. An agreement has almost been reached on a pay increase for Taiwan's public sector workers for next year. That's according to officials from the government's executive branch. But as James Chater reports, there are concerns the proposed hike won't be enough to offset a rising cost of living.
Teachers, soldiers and civil servants make up more than 7% of Taiwan's labour force. It's a total of over 800,000 people. The government is now nearing an agreement on how much of a pay increase workers like these will receive next year.
议会的委员公注度还蛮高的，就建议能够适度的调整。那我们现在这个案已经报到行政院了。
Public sector workers have only received 3 pay increases since 2011, each of around 3 or 4% at a time. But unions say a pay rise of that amount would not be enough in today's economic climate.
如果只是外传的这个3%的话，那根本就实质减薪，因为整个那个物价水准的部分就已经超越这个幅度了。所以我们自己有函数认为说，至少调整10%是一个很标准的，就是说才有感觉到实质的一个调薪。
Last year, war in Ukraine pushed commodity and energy prices up around the world, and that worsened Taiwan's long-standing problem with stagnant wages. The country's average salary on paper went up in 2022. But inflation meant real wages were down for the first time in 9 years. On the streets of Taipei, concern the same could happen this year.
至少要5%或10%吧，3%的话，那个物价坦白讲，通膨太厉害了。然后如果说民间企业能够跟进的话，那个是最好。
应该也要吧，不然这样现在物价上涨，就算物价就是他们的价格回稳的时候也都没有降下来，所以我觉得还是。 薪水的速度也要跟着一起涨。
Officials say a final decision on public sector pay rates will be announced at a, quote, appropriate time. But with Taiwan's presidential election fast approaching, whether workers see this as good or bad news could have wider-reaching political implications. James Lin and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
Police in Japan have arrested a man after 4 people were killed in a knife and gun attack on Thursday. The suspect has been named as 31-year-old Aoki Masanori, the son of a local politician in central Japan's Nagano prefecture. Aoki was arrested on Friday. He had barricaded himself in his father's house for several hours, but was detained after stepping outside. Aoki is alleged to have killed 2 civilian women and 2 police officers. Despite last year's fatal shooting of former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo, gun violence remains rare in Japan, with gun ownership subject to tight controls. South Korean and U.S. forces are holding their largest ever joint live-fire exercises to mark the 70th anniversary of the 2 countries' alliance. The drills are being held close to the border with North Korea. They involve 2,500 troops and hundreds of military vehicles and jets. Thursday was the first round of 5 live-fire drills, which are expected to last until mid-June. It comes as tensions on the Korean peninsula reach their highest point in years, as Pyongyang continues to ramp up its missile testing program. The U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo has held, quote, candid and substantive talks with her Chinese counterpart in Washington. Raimondo met with China's Wang Wentao on Thursday. He's Beijing's first senior official to visit the U.S. capital since 2020. Their meeting comes after a series of disputes between the 2 superpowers over trade and national security. Earlier this week, Beijing banned U.S. memory chip producer Micron from selling some of its products to Chinese companies on national security grounds. That came after the U.S. last year unveiled sweeping export controls targeting China's domestic chip-making industry. Hong Kong airline Cathay Pacific says it will humbly reflect after cabin crew were filmed mocking a Chinese passenger. The incident has caused a sharp backlash in China, a key market for the company. John Van Triest has the latest on the story.
Hong Kong's biggest airline, Cathay Pacific, is in damage control. That's after an audio clip of flight attendants mocking mainland Chinese passengers spread online. In it, they mock a passenger who asked for a blanket, but used the English word carpet instead. The airline has fired 3 cabin crew over the incident. But anger in mainland China, a major market for the airline, continues. This has prompted the company to make 4 separate apologies.
对于个别员工严重违反公司的规章制度以及道德准则的行为， 国泰航空将秉持零容忍的态度，类似的情况绝不允许再次发生。
And even a response from Hong Kong's chief executive.
有机组人员对内地乘客做出不尊重的言行，我感到非常痛心。这些不敬的言行伤害了香港和内地同胞的感情，破坏了香港一贯的尊重、有礼、共荣的文化和价值观。
Hong Kong is a special Chinese territory that was a British colony for over a century. Under British rule, it adopted English on top of its original Cantonese language. But during the same period, China adopted Mandarin as the nationwide standard language. Still, some in China think this is about more than language. On China's Twitter-like Weibo platform, the country's official paper, the Chinese People's Daily, wrote, "It seems that its company culture still maintains a sense of superiority that worships foreigners and respects Hong Kongers, but looks down on mainlanders." This discrimination case, and the backlash it's caused, is the latest blow to an airline trying to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's unclear whether the apologies will be too little, too late. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
20,000 visitors to Taiwan have won the tourism lottery. It's a part of a plan to bring in more tourists after the COVID-19 pandemic. Bing Wong takes a look at whether Taiwan's tourism industry is ready to bounce back.
This person has just won the jackpot, a $150 voucher just for traveling to Taiwan as a tourist. It's part of government efforts to bring in more visitors. In May, the Transport Ministry organized a lottery for tourists to Taiwan, with 20,000 prizes up for grabs. The Transport Minister says he's confident 6 million tourists will come by the end of the year. But not all experts are so sure.
入境的话，大概现在只恢复到将近30%多而已，但是出境已经达到这个5、6成了，这个是我们注意到的这个现象，所以现在有比较大的观光逆差。
While Taiwanese officials seem confident they can boost visitor numbers, the outlook for many in the tourism industry remains far more conservative. Alex Chen and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
After hitting Guam, Typhoon Mawar is moving northwest towards the Philippines and Taiwan. With speeds of up to 200 kilometers an hour, Mawar has been upgraded to a super typhoon. Taiwan's Central Weather Bureau says the typhoon could approach the country by either Tuesday or Wednesday next week. The Bureau says the chances of Mawar making landfall are low, but torrential rains should be expected. Central Taiwan's Sun Moon Lake has finally seen enough rain to bring its water levels back up. Many have looked to Taiwan's so-called plum rain season for relief amid a historic drought. A recent weather front brought large amounts of rain to tourist hotspot Sun Moon Lake, which is also a reservoir. Its water levels have now reached 80% of capacity. The lake was only 20% full just last month. Other reservoirs in southern Taiwan have yet to see similar rainfall, but officials are hopeful that will change soon. Recent rains have resulted in a sweet surprise. A historic drought in southern Taiwan has been hampering mango harvests, but the tropical fruit is beginning to bounce back just in time for summer. Mango ice. It's a popular dessert in Taiwan, especially during the summer months. The sweet, tangy, refreshing flavors are perfect for cooling off when the weather gets hot. And the treat is made with one of Taiwan's most beloved fruits. But the country's mango harvests are in a tight spot this year. Taiwan is going through a drought which has hampered early production. There is one saving grace. Recent rains have boosted not just the number, but the quality of mangoes coming out of farms in southern Taiwan. Higher quality mangoes could mean that drought relief is coming. Southern Taiwan's Kaohsiung City is one place that might see its thirst quenched soon. Mayor Chen Qimai has indicated that if the rainy weather persists, the city could ease its restrictions on water usage in June. Though mango ice provides cool comfort, making it through the drought will be even sweeter. The effects of temperatures rising by a few degrees may not seem like a huge change for us, but for many animals, even a slight change in temperature can be significant. Harrell Hughes explains.
Deforestation and natural biodiversity have a clear cause and effect relationship. Just ask the Bering beetle. This beetle is a tiny but important part of the ecosystem in Taiwan's forests. It breaks down the bodies of small vertebrates and makes them into corpse balls, burying them in the soil. These then become nutrition for the rest of the forest.
它可以把一些尸体当中的元素、有机的养分都会带入到比较深层的土壤，让元素再次回到就是土壤的生态系当中。
But recently, a research team has found a clear link between deforestation and weakening soil nutrients in the forests of Taiwan, which has a lot to do with the Bering beetle. These beetles prefer temperatures of around 16 degrees Celsius. As trees are cut down and the forest gets warmer, these beetles begin to lose out on food to other insects. And less food that's broken down by the Bering beetle means fewer nutrients for the soil.
在高海拔的地方，森林砍伐以后会造成比较明显的日温差的增加，所以这个地方是我们优先需要保护的。
The relationship between humans and nature remains a fragile one, and even upsetting the habits of something as tiny as these little beetles can have huge knock-on effects. As studies continue to reveal the far-reaching impact humans have on the world, researchers say that understanding the natural balance is essential to preserving Taiwan's ecosystem and biodiversity. James Lin and Harrell Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
You might only get the chance to see some of Taiwan's most famous artifacts while they're protected in glass cases. But the National Palace Museum has recreated several models of its priceless antiques as a way to make learning more accessible to special needs students. Joyce Tseng has more.
This is Chen Zhenjie, and in his hands is a replica of one of Taiwan's most treasured masterpieces. It might look like just a piece of meat, and it is. It's called the meat-shaped stone, and it was carved during the Qing dynasty, the final era of imperial China from 1644 to 1912. By using touch and audio guidance, visually impaired student Zhen Jie is able to feel what the real artifact is like.
它长得跟东坡肉一样，可是等一下，蛋起来，这不能吃哦，因为这是一块石头。
The real meat-shaped stone is part of Taiwan's National Palace Museum's permanent collection and can only be seen behind its display glass. But now the museum has recreated 28 of its historic treasures, including the Jasper pork belly and famed jade cabbage, to give children with special needs a chance to learn about these artifacts.
触摸，还有嗅觉，还有听觉，来引导小朋友认识生活相关的面向，来介绍故宫文物。
For 3 days, the National Palace Museum shared these replicas with students of the Huiming School for Blind Children in Taichung. To help aid their learning even further, the museum staff also translated artifact descriptions into Braille.
全盲的孩子，他就是完全要靠声音跟触觉去学习。那如果是低视力的，他也要很近去观察，才可以有这样的感觉。
Normally, museums are places where children are told not to touch things. But that isn't the case here. With these adaptations of Taiwan's most prized antiques, the museum can now help students with all types of needs learn about their country's past. Alex Chen and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
The owner of a laundry shop who shot to fame on social media has died aged 86. Xu Xiu'e and her husband Zhang Guanji ran a laundry in central Taiwan's Taichung City for over 70 years. During that time, they accumulated mountains of unclaimed clothes. Xu and Zhang shot to Instagram fame after their grandson Reef Zhang posted stylish pictures of the couple wearing the vintage clothing. Xu's death was announced Wednesday on Instagram. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally today, we leave you with the images of an annual gathering of history, costume, and Baroque dance lovers at the Palace of Versailles. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.